just so you know. All right, welcome back to the Nikon Theater and Nikon booth. We are live again at Nikon Live, so welcome if you're tuning in. We have an amazing program coming up, and I think what's special about this for me is not only is Corey Rich a Nikon ambassador, but we've been friends for quite a few decades now. I met him when he was an action-adventure rock climbing photographer, and through the years, he transitioned into video and cinematography, and he's one of the best cinematographers and directors in the business right now, and he's about to inspire you with a movie that he created in a project for us with the Nikon Z7. Let me introduce to the Nikon Theater stage, Corey Rich, the making of moving right here at PhotoPlus Expo.
All right, thanks, Mike. Thank you, thank you. Hey, well, good morning, everyone. Or I guess it's almost afternoon. You know, Mike really said, it's really true. My history is I grew up, I sharpened my teeth as a still photographer, but we live in such an amazing time in that we have the ability, the tools have allowed us to transition into being filmmakers, to being storytellers at a higher level. The cameras that we now have in our hands empower us to depress a shutter and create incredible high-resolution pictures in lower light than we ever dreamed possible with film, or we have the ability to flip a switch and press the record button and shoot video with the same cameras. And my career has really evolved over time in that at the core, I love the art of storytelling. I love the craft of documenting the world around me. A couple of months ago, Nikon called and they said, Corey, we're launching a new mirrorless camera. And of course, to that I responded, yes, I've been waiting for this. I can't wait for the mirrorless camera. And they said, we want you to dream up a project that you would like to shoot on the mirrorless camera. And so I live in Lake Tahoe, California, but I travel a lot. I travel sort of in the 200-ish days a year. And I had just been on a travel rampage. I had been gone for over 100 days. And I thought, I'm excited to do something, but I want it to be close to my home. And so one of my dreams when I go out in the morning is to, whoops, what's going on here? Okay, here we go, let me go back here. One of my dreams every morning is to try to get out before work when I'm in the office and do something fun. And so I wanted to shoot something that was close to my heart, but allowed me to stay home. And so I came up with the concept of what do we do in the morning? What do we try to do before we go to work to kind of make our day even fuller? So let me show you the video. It's a short video. This is out my back door in Lake Tahoe, all shot on the Nikon Z7. And then we're going to deconstruct the film, and I'll sort of talk you through my thought process on how I made it and sort of the benefits to actually using a mirrorless camera, the Nikon Z7. So this is morning, shot on the Nikon Z7.
Hey, how was your morning? Fine.
Thank you. So the concept really was, what do we do before work, right? And this concept applies to whether you're in Lake Tahoe, California, in the Sierra Nevada mountains, or Brooklyn, New York. It's what do you do before you sit down in the office? And that's what I wanted to sort of illustrate. But what was really fun about this project is that I wanted it to be something that I could work on for a week. And of course, in photography, the best light occurs in the morning and the evening. And so by choosing a theme like morning, it allowed me to actually shoot multiple mornings in a row. And if you look at this film closely, you'll see some continuity issues. You'll say, boy, the light sure does look different between that shot and that shot. But it was spread out over 5 mornings or so. And so it's piecing together those different shots to create a film. So what I did is I did a screenshot of every scene in the film, or a variety of the scenes in the film, and I'm just going to talk through how we did it. So this was shot in the office down the street from my office, and I looked for kind of the most mundane tasks, right? You set up the film, and I want people to sort of in the first 5 seconds think, do I want to watch this? Why am I watching footage of an office space? And so I looked for sort of these mundane tasks. Some of it made the edit, some of it didn't. We shot stapling, we shot calculating, we shot typing. And this is, I mean, it was a very simple setup. I think so often we see in filmmaking very elaborate setups, big lights and jib arms, but this was actually quite the opposite. This is how we did it. Most of the time it was either handheld or on a tripod. And so this is in our office. I don't think this shot made it. This was the hole puncher. The stapler did make it, no hole puncher. This is my colleague Amelia and her dog continuing to do work while we shoot the film. This is kind of our wide establishing shot. We have our guy sitting there at work. Here he comes, he walks in. I'm always thinking in terms of, I'm trying to wear the hat of a filmmaker, look through the lens as though I'm a filmmaker, and that means I'm establishing the scene, I'm shooting a medium shot, and then I'm creating details or close-ups. So this is sort of the close-up, or a medium. I'm establishing the dog, then I do the reverse, we flip around and we shoot, right? I just shot the opposite direction. Now I shoot our guy, his manager or colleague sitting at the desk. And here it is, this is what it looks like. You know, I put someone in the foreground. We tried different people in that seat, eventually landed on the guy that was in the red plaid shirt. You know, you notice this is just an onboard ME1 microphone. Super simple, that was enough for the audio. It's a Nikon mic on the Z7. Then I learned that we were a little too far away, so we did a new voiceover take. This is my office. You can see how clean my desk is. Piles of books there. And so we re-recorded How Was Your Morning a few times just with a little Zoom recorder. We shoot the video of him taking a sip of coffee. I wanted this coffee cup to reappear multiple times in the video. So you see him set it down on the hood of his car as he takes off on the mountain bike. And that's it's the forward to that cup when you see him drinking out of it in the morning. We then used a FreeFly Alta drone, and we mounted the Nikon Z7 to the bottom of the drone, and we did this driving shot. And you know, half of photography is being prepared. It's you show up with the right lenses, you show up with the memory card, you make sure you charged your battery in advance. And the other part of photography is there's a little bit of luck. It's being there and being ready with luck. So we showed up at 4:30 in the morning, we set the drone up, and as the sun started to come up, we saw this fog on the river. And that's one of those things you can't plan for. You just get lucky with that stuff. You're there and you're prepared, your cameras are ready, and when that happens, it makes for fantastic visuals. So here it is, this is the Z7 mounted. I'm using the stock lens, the 24-70 zoom lens, which is just razor sharp, unbelievably sharp, the optics on this camera. So we're in the dark, we're getting the drone ready. This is our Sprinter van that we work out of for video production. That's one reality with video. You know, we're using the same cameras. I'm still using the Nikon Z7, but as soon as we get into lighting, and then there's a lot more equipment behind the scenes. So we drove out, we set up our drone. Here are my two colleagues. We're using just small monitors and a little receiver so that we can actually see what the Nikon Z7 is seeing in the air. And so we do, and I'm very conscious of what are we trying to capture before we get there. So I'm oftentimes building shot lists, and I knew we needed at least 2 shots. I wanted that wide establishing shot of the car driving up the road. He's heading to the mountain bike trailhead. And then I knew that we wanted a shot of the car, kind of a close-up tracking shot of the car. And so we did that. So here are the guys. Bly and I just flew back from China last night. So Bly is actually controlling the framing of the camera. And this is Sean. Sean is actually flying the helicopter. And so we tried to split those responsibilities. One person's controlling framing, one person's flying, and I'm on another radio trying to coordinate getting the car, and I'm giving direction. And then, so here it is, the car is passing by. You can see that awesome layer of fog. And the light's changing fast with video. And so I'm consciously worried about continuity. Because if these shots are too separated from one another, it's not going to feel like the same day or even the same location. So then I jump inside the car, and it's just handheld, real simple. I'm just hand holding the camera. Built into the Nikon Z7, the sensor actually, there's image stabilization built into the camera. So it's almost like I'm using a gimbal while I'm shooting, but it's just stock in the camera, which is really important. And then I'm fishing for shots. I have this preconceived notion of, one of the inconsistencies in this video, and I don't know if anyone noticed it, the dog sort of shows up and then disappears and then reappears. And well, it turns out we started shooting on day 1 with Lola, the dog, Kyle's dog, and we got partway into the shoot and he said, Lola's pretty old. I don't know how long the dog can stay with us. And I thought, Kyle, we just shot for 3 hours. Now for the rest of the shoot, the dog's gonna like appear and reappear. And so the car scene was actually shot at the very end of the production. And so it was one more way to loop Lola into the film so that she appears enough that at least you realize, okay, there's a dog, it's not random appearances. So here's the driving shot. And the way that we did this was literally open the side of the van door and hang out the door hand holding the camera. And so, I'm sorry, we used a Movi. So here's Sean. This is not OSHA approved, the way that we did this. Usually we would have like a harness or some way to make sure he doesn't fall out of the van, but we're actually driving pretty slowly. And so you can see the camera is on a Movi, and this is the smallest Movi they manufacture. It's the M5. And this camera is so light that you can get away with really small gimbals, actually consumer grade stabilization. And then you can see Bly is sitting there and he's controlling, again, he's framing what the camera is seeing. So you get more sophisticated visuals when you split the responsibility of who's holding the gimbal versus who's controlling the shot. Of course, we were already breaking the OSHA rules, so then we put them on the roof of the car. And this was really safe. It made for some great visuals, but the high angle never quite made the edit. We felt like the drone was kind of interesting enough that kind of served the purpose. But I show this photograph because it's important. You're constantly working to create visuals, and the goal is you have more great content to work with, and some of it gets left on the cutting room floor, as they used to say in the film world. So I'm shooting close-ups, a lot of close-ups. This is taking the bike off the rack. You know, oftentimes, right now, it's very trendy to shoot handheld. You know, and there's trends in still photography, there's trends in video, but you want that organic feel of a handheld shot. So I'm sort of moving as he's pulling the bike off, and you can see we just have a little light in the morning. This whole scene of him getting ready with dust flying up in front of the car lights, most of that didn't make the shoot. It didn't make the final edit. It just felt a little too dramatic. But here I am, I'm just hand holding the camera. You know, ME1 microphone stays on almost all the time because so often the sound that the camera is capturing, just that natural sound in the moment, adds so much to the edit, right? Video, real video creation, it's visuals with sound. And I honestly believe that the sound is 50%. You know, I always say we're in the field and we're shooting beautiful visuals, and in the back of my mind, I know when we get back into the office to do the edit, one of the biggest challenges is finding that one music track and then the sound design. It's adding all of that great sound. So here's the coffee cup, same coffee cup that he was using in the office. Here it is, it's just real simple. I'm hand holding, oftentimes I'm bracing the camera against my rib cage for stabilization, or I'm just intentionally moving it. When you engage your torso and start moving the camera, it turns into more fluid movement. And so I'm handheld, I'm sitting in the back of the car shooting. Sometimes I'll use my knee if I'm trying to brace the camera. And I'm showing some of these behind the scenes photos because I really want you to understand, while we used a drone and we used a Movi, 90% of this film was shot just like this. A camera body, the stock zoom lens at 24-70, and an ME1 microphone. I mean, that's like as simple as it gets. It's distilled down to the same kit that you might use for shooting still photographs. One other tip, this is valuable if you're in the video world. You notice I have a step-up ring on the front of the camera. I can't remember what the thread set is on the front of the lens, but I just make all of my lenses 77 millimeters. You can't step down, but you can step up. So that way, all of my neutral density filters fit on this camera or any of the lenses that I work with. So that's one of the first things that I do when I get a new lens. I buy a step-up ring to make sure that I can actually use all of my filters, polarizers, ND filters, UV filters on the camera. So here it is. Now I was on a monopod. I'm shooting the cup getting lifted up. So I wasn't even on a monopod. I'm just literally resting the camera on the car, pressing record. I have them pick up the cup a few times. And I'm being very conscious of how long are each of these shots going to be on the screen. And I'm thinking through the process. What does it look like to get ready? So I shoot his foot going into the pedal. There I am. I'm just squatting down in the dirt. Now, I'm so thankful that the Z7 shoots in slow motion, 120 frames per second. This is huge for us, for the guys in this room, for the men and women in this room that are filmmakers. To have 120 frames per second in a full frame camera at full HD is awesome. And so if you watch this movie again online, this is one of my favorite shots. You see the dirt slowly kicking off the wheel as he pedals out of the parking lot. Real simple. You just set your camera in the dirt. You're conscious of not getting dirt in the lens, or at least you attempt to not get it in the lens. He rides away. It creates a cool shot. And then this is the sequence that it was shot. So this is day one. Here's our dog. He hasn't broken the news to me yet that the dog can't ride with us every day because it's getting arthritic. And so I'm looking, and oftentimes I'm shooting these scenes over and over again. So this was kind of a moment where he's drinking out of a water bottle. I missed it 3 or 4 times in a row, and then on the 4th time I got it, I review the clip on the back of the camera as soon as we move on. I mean, it's constantly, I'm looking at that shot list in my back pocket and saying, what do I need? And I'm trying to check them off. Because in video, it's more important often that you have the variety of shots. You need that visual diversity. It's not one frame. You're not going to hang one image on the wall at the end of the day. I need 90 seconds of content to carry you through the entire edit. So I'm thinking about pacing all the time. How do I build this scene? This is one little scene. And I need a wide shot, I need a medium shot, and I need close-ups. And so that's always my checklist. Wide, medium, close-up, and I need visual diversity, and I need to nail each one of those shots. Here's the Movi M5. It's just docked on a little stand as we're getting ready. This is Sean. He's running up the trail, and in this case, I was controlling the framing of the camera. This is, again, here's a close-up. This is the wheel taking off and kicking some decomposed granite off of the rock. And so, here it is. It's no complicated camera rig. It's just laying on your stomach and resting the camera on the rock. That's the shot. That's the angle as he rides away from me. Here we are. This was very complicated. Running on this granite was hard, and the bike's moving pretty quickly. And so as Sean and I we traded off who was carrying the gimbal. And so you kind of decide where the camera roughly is going to be pointed, and then we're sprinting across the granite, but trying to not step in one of the cracks. And so, we did this probably a half dozen times until we really nailed one of the shots of him gracefully moving across the rock. 10 years ago, 10 years ago, you could not do it this way. Hollywood would have set up a dolly track across this entire granite slab. They would have spent a day doing that. Today, 2 guys can go out there in their shorts and t-shirt with a Nikon Z7 and run across the granite slab and create a shot that's as compelling or better than what a Hollywood production would have created a decade ago. We're living in an amazing time from that perspective. That was kind of the crux move. We had to jump over this big crack. Then we got the drone out, so now we have some top-down angles. This was sort of the shot that I dreamt of making. I don't know if you remember, but 2 months ago, California was experiencing huge wildfires. And so we had no choice. It was incredibly smoky the entire week. And so that was also a challenge because we have a guy acting like, he's an aerobic athlete, and so he's riding his bike and we have him doing laps up and down this granite slab. And so really thick smoke, but I kind of liked the color palette. It made for some really beautiful backgrounds. And so, and by the way, these are screen grabs from the video. So we shot most of it in 4K, full frame 4K at 24 frames per second. And then we shot a lot, and then the rest of it was in slow motion at 1920 by 1080 at 120 frames per second. So drone shot riding down the slab. This is again mounted, same Movi M5, it's just mounted to the bottom of the drone. So we're hot swapping it right into the drone, and then we grab it and we run with the same gimbal. Here he is, that's what the drone looks like in the air. Pretty big drone, but it allows us to carry this payload. And so here we are. I like to say, people ask Corey, like, what's your job on this? And I say, I'm directing. It looks like I'm standing there doing nothing, but I am actually coordinating with the radio with the athlete, and then Bly and Sean again are flying. Here they are, that's what we're seeing. Bly, excuse me, Bly's worried about what the camera is seeing, and meanwhile, Sean is worried about not crashing the drone into the granite slab or into the athlete, so we're kind of dual operating. Here it is, we're proximity flying next to the athlete, Kyle Smain. Close-ups, again, we're running with Kyle with the Movi. Or actually, that was handheld, I'd forgotten, so I'm just standing right next to him, getting this close-up of his face as he's about to ride. We're looking for kind of interesting moments. We're constantly changing the lensing. Everything was shot, by the way, in this film with 3 lenses. It was the 24-70, the 50 millimeter lens, and the 35. So all of the new Nikkor Z lenses, and they are just razor sharp. So I'm kind of pushing as much as I can. You can see there's a monopod just sticking out from behind me here. And I'm probably at 70 millimeters, and so that's why I'm using that for stabilization. The longer lens I'm shooting on, the more I'm thinking about how do I make sure that this is actually stable. So top down, the drone again, here I am, he's whipping past me. I'm shooting with just handheld 24-70. He's climbing. We shot a lot of footage of him climbing back up the hill. And in the end, I thought, that's less compelling than the riding down the granite slab. So that went to the cutting room floor. We went into the forest. Some of the bike riding footage, it was just Kyle and I. We would get up at 5 in the morning, we'd ride up the hill. I would jump off my bike, he would ride back up, and I would have him do 3 passes. So kind of and this is a great example of I do a close-up, you see the aspen tree in the foreground, then I do a wide shot, I establish where he is, both handheld, I just pulled the camera out of my bag. Then we went out to do kind of a lot of the technical riding, and a couple of the guys from the office came out with me, mostly because it was a lot of weight, like to carry the gimbal, to carry the camera. So we shoot him peeling out, here I am shooting handheld, riding past me. We got the drone up in the air in this burned out tree area. One of the things that I'm always doing is I'm thinking and trying to kind of log locations that I want to shoot one day. 5 years ago, there was a forest fire in this area, and annually I've gone up for a hike or I've gone mountain biking, and it's changed over time, and finally we have this kind of green foliage below and these burned out trees, and I thought this is a great location. And it's this database in my head. I don't necessarily write them down, but I'm always thinking about what could I do in this location. And finally, this mountain bike shoot came about. We hiked the drone up there. Here they are, we're flying again. The top down was really cool with this trail through the green vegetation. I do a complimentary long lens panning shot. Here I'm on a tripod. Then we go back to handheld. We're looking for interesting patterns, right? You get to the location, but then it's still your job to sort of force yourself into the interesting locations, find that line, shape, and form, find the design. Here, I just want to here he is, the jumping sequence shot at 120 frames per second. This is a 1 second moment, but when shot at 120 frames per second, it lives on screen for almost 3 seconds. We got the dog back in, here's Lola. We actually had to kind of slowly walk her up the trail while we shot. She'd had her cameo, and then she went back to her trailer for dog food. Here we go. We tried a shot where he jumps over the bike. Didn't quite work, went to the cutting room floor. But the goal is you're trying all of these different shots, whether they make it or not. Looking for details. Here it is, he's riding off the slab. I just set the camera down, and this was the last shot that we did. We rode up to the creek crossing, which is about an hour-long ride, and it was so smoky all week that we couldn't make this happen. And so the edit was almost done. Nikon was calling and saying, Corey, it's due, it's due, it's due. But I wanted to get this water crossing, so we went up on the last morning and just cut out 2 shots and slipped this in. I think it's a 2-shot sequence. Did the log ride. We ran next to him on the log. I did a little close-up shot. Again, I'm just trying to get the takeoff. Here he is in the rock sequence. And then I said, why don't you try to kind of lock up your back tire so that we get some dust? I wanted this shot. The only thing that we miscalculated was that he absolutely nailed me with the dust. So that 77 millimeter filter I was telling you about, thankfully I had an ND filter on the lens. And so when decomposed granite hits your camera, it actually ruins the lens filter. It would have ruined the glass, but instead it just ruined the filter. And I don't know if you can see how dusty this is. This is a little video clip.
Perfect. Like I didn't mean cover the camera in dirt, but that's pretty good.
There was a lot of dust on that camera.
That was awesome.
But the good news is it's so weather sealed that I sort of blew it off. I wiped it off with my shirt, and we shot for another 3 hours. No dust in the camera, didn't ruin the camera. And that's the ultimate test for a camera. Water's one thing, snow's one thing, but dust is the ultimate enemy of a camera being used for still or video. All right, I'm out of time, but thank you guys for listening. And this video morning is online if you'd like to watch it again. And get out there and shoot some video. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Corey Rich, Nikon Ambassador. We have another amazing program, so don't leave. We have Michelle Valborg, Canadian Nikon Ambassador here to talk about wildlife photography in just 2 minutes.